Today is Thursday, the 28th of May, 2026. A pleasant good morning to you. And a warm welcome to your breakfast show, Good Morning Sierra Leone. The program is always starts today with analysis and divergence of views on news and current happenings in the country. We are your presenters. I am Esther Sako.
And I'm Dennis Fraser. Of course, we'll begin with our quote this morning, which is from American writer W.B. Du Bois. And it says, "A true and worthy ideal frees and uplifts the people. A false ideal imprisons and lowers self-esteem." Well, on that note, we welcome you to the program, and we give you that, of course, as always, as a food for thought. When you have a free ideal, definitely is that not something you will always ponder upon. So, and that will ensure for you to, pave your way into whatever you do and ensure that you always do the right thing.
Exactly.
And so, in as much as it's a somber atmosphere here at Broadcasting House, more so that we are mourning the demise of a fallen hero. We used to refer to him King David. He was a fallen hero here at the SLBC. He passed on last year in a very gruesome road accident, and of course SLBC is mourning, and we are still reflecting on those very, very tragic moments for the podcasters.
Exactly so, and 1 year on we are still missing David, even though a lot of things we are trying to adjust in some areas, but David had his own knack at that time.
Yes.
And he was here at the Broadcasting House, and he's sorely missed by us colleagues, families, friends. I'm sure everybody at Broadcasting House will always remember David for someone who is always, as you can say, the ambogin, a serious one. In the morning you will see David over in every office tickling people. You not see me this morning for greet me.
Surely.
So he's actually sorely missed.
David will forever be missed. His memories forever will linger in our hearts, and he continues to have a very special place in our hearts. And SLBC will continue to miss you. The cameras here will miss you. The reporters here will miss you, and all of us will miss you. Yesterday was actually memorial service. Yes, we want to, on behalf of management and staff of the SLBC, including the Board of Trustees, continue to send our condolences to the bereaved family, and we say may the soul of the faithfully departed continue to rest in perfect peace. Alright, so on that somber note, we bring you the menu this morning. In the menu this morning, as the APC announces conclusion of nationwide lower level elections, over 4,000 positions.
Okay. And we shall be talking to Honorable Sirajin Rollins Kamara on his observations on the conduct of the elections.
And NGO Week launched to honor non-governmental organizations' transformative contribution across Sierra Leone. At this moment, we invite you, our esteemed viewers, to be part of the program, sending your thoughts, your comments, or even suggestions to the issues being discussed here this morning, and of course we'll gladly read them out. You can do so by sending them to the number displaying on your screen, or also follow us on our Facebook page at slbc.sl. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone. Stay with us.
The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone, live on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. You can be part of the conversation by sending your text message to the number displayed on your screen, or send a comment on our Facebook page at SLBC.SL. It's now time for us to usher in our guest. The All People's Congress APC Internal Elections Management Committee (IC) has announced the successful conclusion of its nationwide local-level internal elections held on Saturday, the 21st of February 2026. According to a preliminary statement issued by the IEMC's national coordinator, the party conducted elections to fill 4,014 14 positions across all 446 wards in Sierra Leone's 17 administrative districts. Voting was carried out by secret ballot, limited strictly to duly registered and verified members.
Very well, as the IEMC described the electoral process as generally peaceful, orderly and transparent, noting that candidates, agents and accredited observers were present at most polling centers. In certain centers, polling are to be temporarily suspended to restore order and clarity or clarify procedures. The IEMC stated that all complaints and petitions will be handled strictly according to the parties' dispute resolution mechanisms, with the possibility of commending or reruns corrective measures following proper investigations, as stated by the IEMC. Well, for more on this issue, we've been joined by the Secretary of the IEMC, in person of David Fona. Good morning, Mr. Fona.
Yeah, good morning, Sierra Leone. Good morning, APC members and Sierra Leoneans at large.
All right, of course, take us head on. Paint us a vivid picture as to how it all ended as you conducted reruns of nationwide polling, just as we earlier stated in the interview.
Yeah, on Sunday, 24th of May, we went across the country on the conduct of 65 rerun ward elections. And out of those 65 elections, we concluded successfully with 55, with barely 10 elections remaining. Reasons for the inconclusive nature of those elections was as a result of violence in 4 of the wards that the elections were conducted, and you have 6 that were not conducted as a result of the late arrival of our ballot booklets. Sorry to say, we had a logistical constraint that led us to have our ballot booklet arrive on time, and then by the time we got them to the polling station, it was after 2, and the stakeholders as well as the IEMC agreed, by the way, that we must give enough time to conduct those elections and that we defer them for some other day.
Now, very well. Of course, I listened to you with very rapt attention when you were saying that you had a logistical challenge insofar as the conduct of the ward elections are concerned. I remember we hosted here some days ago, weeks to the rerun of this particular ward election, and you did promise faithfully that you leave no room for challenges to cause disruption to the particular process. Well, let's leave that aside. Let's see that as a pitfall insofar as the election is concerned. But let's focus on what is recurring. It is almost becoming a norm that each time, whether it was the first running of the election or the rerun of the ward election, violence keeps erupting. Are you really losing grip as IMC in the conduct of these ward elections insofar as providing the requisite security?
Well, in the conduct of our ward elections, security squarely lies in the hands of the police. And so far, we want to commend the police for, aiding us with security in the over 300 or up to 400 elections we have conducted. However, be it as it may, there were certain miscreants within the party that are meant...
That are uncontrollable, that each time it keeps causing trouble?
Well, not all the time, but wherever they had the opportunity, of creating disruptions over the process, they will, cling to that opportunity. And I think we've learned our lessons with the remaining 4 elections. All of them we are in Ward 060, where we have our member of parliament who was in charge of wrecking that havoc.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask the amount of grip that your party has on its members, because based on videos that were going on social media, we had even executive members from your party that were in the forefront causing the havoc for the elections to be
well
disrupted.
The notable one is the one that I'm trying to present to you. We have 132 elections in constituencies, and we have leaders in each of those constituencies, and out of those 132 is only one person that disrupted the 4 elections that went unconcluded due to violence, and that is the Honorable Sheridan Kamara. He led a group of thugs who went all over constituency 60 in Cambia district, and they disrupted the elections. By the way, they met little resistance from the security that were there, and they took advantage of that and disrupted the elections.
Now, David, in as much as, because we must make this very clear to our esteemed viewers, that we are supposed to host Honorable Siraji Rollins Kamara this morning, who is accusing the party, maybe should I say calling on the party to halt all lower level elections for now, citing irregularities insofar as the process is concerned. This is not the first time we are seeing people before now the petition about 37 results across the country. Now we have been seeing another individual coming forward, pointing, accusing fingers that the election they are marked by irregularities, and you keep coming back telling the people, assuring party supporters that you are in control. Do you think you are fully in control?
Yeah, definitely the party is in control. You see, that is the beauty of our democracy in the APC. In as much as you have the leadership, supporters and other individuals are free to say their observation. And I want to indicate here that there are mechanisms that people ought to go through in ensuring that they put forward their dissatisfaction over election processes. And in each conduct of our lower level elections, we have a room for redress. If Honorable Siraji Rollins Kamara has any redress that he may want to seek, will oblige him to go through the party process, that is going through the IECB, and later, if he wants to, he goes to the PPRC.
Was it a mistake that you add all the symbols to represent candidates on the ballot paper instead of the portrait of the candidate? Was it a mistake, or
No,
you did
it was not a mistake.
Was that communicated to the various candidates?
Yes, certainly. In fact, prior to the conduct of the polls on Sunday, we had a voter education flyer that was going all over the place, and people saw what they ought to do or what obtains at the polling center, and that decides it's never an error to make use of symbols, because those symbols are representatives of the party candidate that are contesting in the elections.
Was it communicated to the general population of your
Yes,
party? Because that was a challenge faced by some people.
Certainly. In fact, out of the 65 elections that we conducted, there has not been any report that indicates the use of ballot symbols as a problem. It was never a problem.
No, but let's look at it this way. Even in a democratic dispensation, if Honorable Siraji Rollins Kamara is even saying that no serious democratic institution will conduct elections using animal symbols rather than the portraits of candidates themselves, because how will you expect voters or delegates to identify who they are going to be voting for?
And I want to restate that it was the decision of the party to use those symbols in respect of...
I am still asking if you communicated that, because how can a voter who knows maybe the name of the candidate or the face of the candidate, let's say in situations wherein the voter is not, does not understand, I'll say not literally that good in identifying...
Like proper voter education.
Was it actually done? That is the question.
I am pretty sure that's not an issue, because we did our voter education and it went on well. People voted with less void votes. You know, for you to prescribe an election of that nature as doubtful in terms of the use of, images or animals as symbols, should be reflected in the outcome of the polls. But I don't think that's a problem. We've not received any report whatsoever that the use of those symbols were a problem.
Continues with us in the program is David Fauna, Secretary for the Internal Elections Management Body of the All People's Congress Party. We'll continue with you shortly in the program, but let's move on now to another issue regarding human rights in the country. As the Human Rights Defenders Network, Sierra Leone, has raised serious concerns over a new agreement that allows Sierra Leone to temporarily host deportees from the United States of America. They warned that the policy could expose vulnerable individuals to grave human rights violations. HRNDNSL urges that the government has failed to clarify the legal status of deportees, the protection available to them, or the oversight mechanisms in place. The group warns that deportees could face arbitrary detention, family separation, or inhuman treatment in violation of international conventions on human rights and political rights, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and Sierra Leone's own constitution. Well, to further the conversation on this morning, we've been joined by, of course, the Executive Secretary, I beg your pardon, for Human Rights Defenders Network, Alfonso Subani. Mr. Bani, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, viewers.
Of course, this issue has really generated much public interest of recent times, and depending on who you talk to, there's a mixed reaction to this particular issue currently unfolding in the society. But you've called on the government to, to halt this particular action, and you've criticized the government for doing this particular engaging in particular agreements based on several parameters you've highlighted. You mind taking a leaf on that? Why so is the case?
Yeah, we have been following the discussions prior to prior to the arrival of the deportees, the first set of deportees. We were expecting that the government will have taken short agreements to the House of Representatives, where we then now know what is the content in that document, and we can now see how we can also influence our legislature to at least to dot the I's and cross the T's.
Okay.
But we are not opportune to have we are not opportune to see the document even before it was signed. What we now witness is the arrival of the first set of deportees, which we were expecting 25, but from our own reading, it was like maybe 7 people that 9 deportees that arrived. So our concern is that so people that have been watching or following the current Trump administration response to immigration issues in America will agree with us that the Trump administration has not been treating immigrants in a humane way. And whosoever watch TVs and how they respond, it's inhuman, it's barbaric, and there's no respect. And even in somebody that commits crime, even if you commit crime, you also have the right to due process. So we have not seen a situation where the Trump administration have given respect to immigrants or to migrants in their own country. And so for us as a state to receive people that have been treated in a barbaric manner or have been reduced to even less than animals, I think it's a slap on our parts, given that our country respects the principles.
When you say they are reduced to status to be less than animals, in what sense?
That's what I'm saying. I'll give you the premises as to how the Trump administration has responded, has been treating immigrants in America, if whosoever is reading or watching news, you really see the barbaric way they are handling people. So that is not human. From the human perspective. Yeah, some of them are tied up, they are molested, dragged, or whatsoever. It's all over. This is not a strange issue. Okay. So our concern is the fact that, in the first place, America, President Trump has withdrawn from all human rights protocols. And so therefore, he's one person as a president and as his own government is not a respecter of human rights. And somebody that is not a respecter of human rights, as a civilized nation, as we are in Sierra Leone, we need to think twice as we go into bilateral agreement with the United States. And the issue is that most of these people that are being deported, from our own understanding and engaging with our colleagues, some of them went to America and filing a claim of seeking asylum. And in America, once you are filing a claim, you have applied for asylum, you will go through the immigration process. And some of them have been classified under an asylum-like status that is referred to as withholding of removal. Now, when you talk about withholding of removal, it implies that the immigration judge have examined your claim, and he has all reason to suggest that if you go back to your own country, the risk of persecution is more than 50%.
Okay.
And so therefore they place you under an asylum-like status referred to as withholding of removal.
Where you born that? Okay, yes, sir.
So how does this agreement affect Sierra Leoneans?
I'm coming. Can I just finish?
Okay, please.
Now, that withholding of removal prohibits the United States government to deport asylum seekers that are under that classification to their country of origin. But it does not prohibit them from deporting them to a third country. Now, when you look at the 1951 Convention on Refugees, we talked about the principles of non-refoulement. And non-refoulement, the principle of non-refoulement is simply suggesting that you cannot return somebody that has seek asylum or a refugee to the country of origin. So the Trump administration is fully aware that they will breach the principles of the Refugee Convention, and they will put those people at risk by sending them to their host country. That is why they are asking and sending them to a third party, which is Sierra Leone. And so as a nation, we are aiding and abetting a violation of which we are a civilized nation, and we are bound by international obligation. And Sierra Leone is a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, okay, of which we are obligated as a nation to respect that.
And it's based on that. Sorry to put in there. Please forgive me for cutting it short. Yeah. The Minister of Foreign Affairs was in another medium to have suggested that, of course, Sierra Leone is a member state of ECOWAS, and these were ECOWAS citizens, and Sierra Leone is temporarily hosting them until their documentation and process for them to get back into their various countries. So, yeah, no. Is that anyway could be described as a violation?
It's a violation because we are doing the dirty job of Donald Trump.
Okay.
Donald Trump is responsible. We are not responsible. These people did not pass through Sierra Leone to go to the United States of America. Donald Trump administration arrested these people on the streets, some from their houses, some from their place of work, and placed them in camps. They have the capacity to take these people from America straight to their host country.
Okay.
But I've given you the premises that prohibits America from doing so because they have been placed under withholding of removal. Yes. And so they are protected on that particular status. So we are doing now the dirty job of the United States of America under the Trump administration, of which we are not supposed to be. And when you look at the circumstances, nobody in Sierra Leone, even with ECOWAS, have ever condemned or ever pushed ECOWAS citizen coming to Sierra Leone. We have never condemned that, and we did not bar anybody traveling from any ECOWAS country to come to Sierra Leone. But what we are condemning is the procedure used by the United States of America using Sierra Leone as a conduit to violate the rights of ECOWAS citizens. We should not be seen supporting a foreign country dehumanizing our own brothers and sisters within our own continent, West Africa, to be precise.
Okay.
And so therefore, once these people are here, because Donald Trump will not send them directly, they are in this country, they are in Sierra Leone. Now, if we create the opportunity for these people to be forcefully return to their host country. We are now doing the dirty job which America is refusing to do. We are doing it in that state, and we are now exposing our own brothers and sisters to violation. So if the people that have been sent here, there is all potential or likelihood that when they go back to their country they will be persecuted, Sierra Leone will be held accountable for violating the right and exposing the rights of other citizens to
so aside from these ones you've highlighted, what's also the human rights implication that will befall Sierra Leone if we allow this to go unabated?
Well, the other human rights implication is that if, for all good reason, a number of these people cannot go to their own country of origin, and for all obvious reasons, Sierra Leone will not grant them nationality status. We have rendered, even though Sierra Leone is not a signatory to the 1954 stateless convention, but we are going to render those people stateless. And the international community is suggesting that nobody should be rendered stateless. And even the 1961 convention also talks about not to allow the issue of statelessness to occur. So when you have the 1954 convention that talk about statelessness, the issue of protection, the 1961 is talking about preventing it from happening again. And so if Sierra Leone, as a country, allow foreign national ECOWAS citizens to become stateless, we have now violated that particular convention that tried to prevent people from becoming stateless. And so therefore, as a nation, and that is why we make it very clear in our press release, that the government should make it very clear about the legal status of these deportees that are coming in this country. But if the government is prepared.
But the minister made it clear that they have a specific time. I think it was 14 days or so.
No. By the statement of the foreign ministry that they will be here up to 90 days. 90 days means after 90 days, if you do not go, there is all likelihood that you'll be forced. You'll be compelled to agree to move. And so when you are compelled, you are forced to go to an area where you think you are going to suffer persecution. We have violated the rights of citizens for being protected. I don't know if you are getting what I'm trying to say. So the minimum provision or period of stay is 90 days. And 90 days, these people have claimed, they presented the claim to the Immigration Department, United States of America, that they are going to suffer persecution. They ran away from their country because of A, B, and C. And
just to buttress so that the minister also alluded that because it was asked whether if these individuals come in, if they are rejected in their countries of origin, whether Sierra Leone grants them citizenship, he said they will look into that and they will come out with a decision. Do you think that's a positive response from the minister?
It's not a positive response. It's the same concern we are now raising, because if you accept them and the country of origin rejects them, then they are not citizens of Sierra Leone. They are neither citizens of their own country, so they are stateless. And we should not be seen. Sierra Leone is a civilized nation, and Sierra Leone is a respecter of the rule of law. That is why we are still members, we are still signatories, we are still respecting international laws. But Donald Trump and his administration withdrew America on all human rights treaties. And so we should not be seen aligning ourselves with a government that is not respecting the rule of law. So we are not supposed to be playing the dirty work of the United States of America under the Trump administration.
So what do you think of the government? Because the government has already signed the agreement. We have to receive, I think, 300 a year.
Yeah, that is for every agreement, except otherwise, this government deliberately refused to indicate, of which I know that they are legal practitioners within the government. For every agreement, there are always clause for amendments. Certainly. So I want to believe that clause is in that agreement. So this agreement should be taken to Parliament. And some of these issues we are now raising will be discussed at Parliament. We will now influence our parliamentarians to say, no, we need to revise this. That the government also needs to put clauses that if these people cannot go to their host country because of fear of persecution, what will happen with those people that are going to be in Sierra Leone or that we are going to allow to be natural citizens of this country? The United States government has the responsibility to bear the economic cost of those people in this country. So and even the money that they provided to Sierra Leone, 1.5, is just nothing.
Just before we move to another issue, I'm talking about the 1.5 million United States dollars that was given to Sierra Leone as part of the agreement. Although other 12 world nations received far more than that, even from the United States or even the United Kingdom. But let's also look at that in perspective. In as much as this agreement did not go to Parliament for it to have parliamentary approval to give government the green lights to really enter into it. If we're going past that now, the government is fine to it. Do you see in any way maybe government was more interested in the money, or I'm just suggesting, I'm not trying to speak for or behalf of the government, but from the human rights perspective, what are you envisaging that may have caused government to really rush into this agreement and ignore all the necessary provisions before entering into it?
Well, the money could be one. Looking at the 1.5, it's not only the 1.5, but the potential MCC $400 million that is going to be given to Sierra Leone, and the lifting of the travel ban on Sierra Leone. But mind you, we should not look at that money. There is no amount of money in this world that will pay the life of every individual, even one person. So let's assume Sierra Leone, because of the money or because of the travel ban, we receive these people and we force them to go to their country of origin, and any one of them is persecuted or even to the extent being killed. The 400 million will not pay the life of that one person. We cannot. So we should not be looking at the travel ban, the money that we are going to receive at the expense of our own sister nations, exposing them to risk because of our own personal benefit. That's unfortunate, and it's a miscalculated decision by the government.
Okay, Banji Silva, so the program is the Executive Secretary of the Human Rights Defenders Network, Sierra Leone, and for B. Bani, and he has been taking us to a certain agreement that the government made, and they as a civil society organization is strongly against the agreement. Well, we quickly take a health tip of today, and today we look at the 7 ways to relieve a bloated stomach. A bloated stomach can be uncomfortable and at times painful, but in most times you can treat it at home. Here are some common remedies. Let us watch and learn.
Does your stomach feel full? Do you feel a lot of pressure and tightness in your belly? If so, you may be dealing with a bloated stomach. Feeling bloated can be uncomfortable and in some cases painful. It's typically caused by excessive gas inside your digestive system, something that can happen after eating too much, eating too fast, or if you have a food intolerance. Your menstrual cycle can also cause temporary bloating. So how can you relieve a bloated stomach? Try these common remedies. 1. Drink herbal teas. Certain teas such as peppermint, chamomile, ginger, turmeric, and fennel may aid in digestion and relieve gas. Dandelion tea can help reduce water retention. Number 2, take peppermint oil capsules. Peppermint oil capsules, which are a natural antispasmodic, are designed to help your intestinal muscles relax. This method may help you pass trapped poop and gas. Number 3, try antacids. There's a variety of over-the-counter antacids which can help relieve inflammation in your digestive tract and pass gas easily. Look for the active ingredient called simethicone, which works by grouping smaller gas bubbles together. Number 4, consider a magnesium supplement. Magnesium has a natural laxative effect and can help neutralize stomach acid and relax your intestinal muscles. But it can be habit-forming, so limit how often you use this remedy. Number 5, think about probiotics. Probiotics can help rebalance your gut bacteria. Some strains may help you digest your food easier or absorb extra gas. But you need to take probiotics consistently to really notice any difference in your bloating. Number 6, look into psyllium husk. This popular fiber supplement can help you poop more regularly. Make sure you add psyllium husk slowly and drink plenty of water. Number 7, get moving. Regular exercise, especially focusing on your core, can help combat bloating. While common, a bloated stomach can be an unpleasant feeling, and it can often be prevented. Make sure you get enough fiber in your diet, drink enough water, and avoid processed foods. It can also help to be mindful when eating. Take your time when you chew, and only eat until you're full.
Good morning, Sierra. Wishing you live from the Sierra Broadcasting Corporation Television on Channel 31 and across our social media streaming platforms. And that was our health tips. We hope you've learned a lot. For especially those of us who are really trying to have flat tummy and six packers or whatnot. But that was that. I know you've learned a lot. Esther.
Okay, so we usher in our guest in the program. Countries in Africa has commemorated African Liberation Day with renewed calls for unity, growth, peace and self-reliance among African nations. In Sierra Leone, the African Rising Movement commemorated the day on the theme United Africa, the Future of the Want. The theme serves as the guiding message for the annual African Liberation Week, focusing on grassroots, Pan-African unit, borderless integration and fighting for structural justice. In the studio we have the co-convener of the African Rising Movement, Sierra Leone, Mohammed B. Koroma. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, SLBC. Good morning, Sierra Leone.
Okay, so to put it into context so that our viewers can understand, let us know how relevant is the African Liberation Day to us as Africans.
African Liberation Day is a day set aside by African civil society leaders way back in 2012 when we have the convening of the African leaders of civil society and at a convening meeting where we looked at Africa as a continent and then wanted to also not looking at it but looking at the issues within Africa, as Africans, and then our issues, and then how we think we can be able to put into their perspective, and then be able to, carve the way of solving them in terms of always coming to them in terms of us as one family, and then also promote unity, freedom, justice, and growth, in the continents. And so in that meeting, we had what we also as 2.0 of the human unification that talks about, well issues, but knowing them to borderless Africa, climate justice, gender, and of course ethical governance and all of that. So in that meeting we agreed, by representatives then, and then by a big convener now in Sierra Leone, who is an institution called the Center for College of Activities in CCY, and the civil director, Madam Stevens, is a big convener. And all of us, are co-conveners, meaning African membership or movements is the first person one. People in formal institutions, families, individuals, institutional agencies, and all of that. Is to raise awareness as to how we think we see Africa. We have just get into United Africa, the Africa we want. How do we get the Africa we want when we are not together? How do we get the Africa we want when we are able to carry up continuity, justice, freedom, dignity, and then of course advance human rights, and then look at Africa as a continent that will boost our trade and investments and all of that. So for us, we are concerned. For us, it's a roadmap that we think we will pursue. And then the day itself is May 25th every year, and then it's called the African Liberation Day. And it's a week-long observation in terms of engagements that we refer to as the African Liberation Week. That works on the 25th of every month, of the month of May every year. And then on the 31st of May, much to seize about activities. And then these activities are not only domestically, capped, they are globally put together, as continents at level, and then we look at how we now implement them at around level. So what we do here right now as a team is studio, and so also we have other colleagues within Africa continent, also citizens of studios as well, promote the same message, and then giving out what we stand for, and then we will achieve all of this.
Now, talking about the African Liberation Day, of course, this very important celebration is coming at the backdrop of the xenophobic attack taking place in South Africa. And the question I wanted to put forward to you is how best was that catalogue in this particular important celebration, because we see this was a nation, Esther, that suffered apartheid, and nations across the continent, we are united with them to really, fight against apartheid regime. South Africa of recent is becoming more hostile nation to its fellow African brothers and sisters. How have you been working as the Africa Rising movement, and with your theme, the Africa we want to see. And when we have all of these critical challenges coming at this very crucial time.
My dear brothers and sisters and viewers, the issue of Africa suffering, in that line has not started today. The apartheid you mentioned is way back in 1976, is way to South Africa when we saw that. And then, this day start from what we saw happen in free slavery, era where Africans were taken to abroad to as free slaves, and how they were treated, and how they were brought back to our African continents. And then what has happened there in terms of devastation, in terms of abuse, and all of that is there. And then, like you mentioned, the South African situation now, it's not clear. This is not the first time it's happening. And then also, it's also applicable to South Africa. And then if you are not be careful, like I said in your sister program, Good Morning,
Morning Coffee.
I said, if you are not be careful, the worst will also happen in our country. And so having looked at all of this, having introspective into the issue, the future itself, we want to look at how we think we come together to begin to foster messages that can be able to bring us together. Already, like I said, we have structures that have been set. We have the Man Union, we have the ECOWAS, there's EU, there's some other structures, and all of that. So it means that the movement itself has begun from state party level, but then as civil society, as Africans, ordinary, African loving people, Southern loving people, we think that, that is not enough. The fight for liberation, for women emancipation was only sat and stopped with government or state parties, but also boils down to the common man. Yesterday, before I came to the podium, 2 days ago, we're at the community level, at peace market level, and then at Botomango markets at Blackpool, is it Old Road? We saw a woman selling plantain and a man selling rice and other things, and they said, push what I mean? If it at community level, we see that there's a issue of peace.
Okay.
There's no confusion. So, and that itself escalates. It boils down also goes on to community level, to regional level, to national level, and then eventually it also moves to a state to state level. We saw the current impact within the Ondega issue. For us as and Guinea, are very good brothers, are very good neighbors. Who are working together with. We saw, the tensions that arose from side to side on that issue. So it tells you that it is important for Africa itself to be seen as one family.
Okay.
What unites us as Africans is not you and I, it's not you and someone from Guinea. It's about the borders and the maps that are put together. That's a long map stop. Then there's a Guinea, say this, and then that's it. But as Africa are not divided. So you're not married to Gambian, you're not married to South African. We see
Mr. Koma.
So how do you come in as a movement in bridging that gap? Collaborating with, as you made mention, it's on a national level. We have the MRU and the other ECOWAS and all. How do you come in collaborating with these other institutions, ensuring that we push for the theme that you stated, the United Africa, the future we want?
Before we came in now, I will just mention that the movement has begun, from what you have just mentioned. So as civil society, we said this can be achieved alone by those that we have mentioned, the social that Leone said, to have also play all of that. My brother there at first of all, many from me was just saying about the position of Africans. I also referred to the sister program. Okay. We saw, US state governments deporting Africans. You don't take them to Europe, to other parts of the world, to Asia.
They brought them back home.
Yeah, they're saying that's after take them. They believe that they are own. Whatever circumstance, and are then going there, whatever way they have treated them, they believe these are Africans. When they go to that. So we should be able to own up of our responsibility of things that are done to us. And then why do we see borders? Why do we see visa issues? If you want to go to South Africa and say, yes, African, get South African visa. We want to go to Kenya before now and say, get visa to enter Kenya. So I'm just saying that we must go with the borders. The barriers that we create unnecessarily that we don't use to make us live together. The European Union. United States of America. It's not 52 states coming to make the United States of America. It's what happened in Asia, they have their own. So what I'm saying is, let's have United Africa. Africa we want, and we want to see by moving, say barrier, to promote trade investment, to promote human rights, to promote peace, and to value ourselves with all the wealth that we have, all the goodies that we have, to maximize them.
Okay, continue to stay us in the program is Mohamed Kouma, co-convener of the Africa Rising Movement here. Of course, on that note, I want to bring you in, Mr. Bani. Of course, you heard from him. He spoke about something very, very critical in his submission there, talking about united front as so far as Africans we are concerned. And in your press release, you are also talking about dignity of Africans. They should be treated well, insofar as the human rights should be guaranteed. Now, let's also take it from the human rights perspective. Let's use the human rights lens to address our issues also as Africans. If we are mistreated overseas and then we are being sent back home on our African soils to come and build our lives, to come and start all over again, institutions such as the African Union, such as ECOWAS or the Monetary Union, these were institutions that were set up for, to be championing, issues like this. Their silence, is it a concern for you as human rights defenders?
Yes, it's a concern, and interestingly, the thing that made me laugh, our president is the current chair of ECOWAS. And this citizens are ECOWAS citizens. So, it would have been better for the president to discuss with his counterparts within the ECOWAS region, to not look at this issue purely from a bilateral issue, but let it be like a sub-regional concern coming from the ECOWAS bloc, that we have ABC concern with the United States approach in this regard. But when you look at the US, they are doing this individually. There are some other countries within West Africa that accepted this deal. Others did not. Our largest brother in West Africa, Nigeria, did not. But we, some of us, I don't know the reason, but it's not good for the African, for the sub-region here, ECOWAS, for us to see how our citizens, our brothers and sisters, are being treated in a way that is least reduced to like animals. So to us as an institution, is dehumanizing, and it's a violation to the rights of our ECOWAS citizens. We believe that ECOWAS citizens should do more, or heads of state. I can sympathize with the American government that they don't want us, West Africans, particularly because we are talking about West African citizens. This is a wake-up call to our leadership, because when you put systems and processes in place, in West Africa, people will not live here. There is no need for me. In fact, I do not take any pride to go to United States. To me, anywhere you see people, even when you are traveling, you are walking around the United States, people are scared, are afraid that somebody will come and shoot you or whatsoever. I don't go to that place. I feel comfortable when I'm in Sierra Leone. So if we put systems and processes, nobody will leave here to go to the United States. We have everything that it takes in Africa.
So Mr. Bani, as it stands, have you been able to approach government on this particular issue?
We have presented our press release, and I'm pretty sure the government is fully aware of our press release. The next thing we are now taking up is sending a letter requesting from the foreign ministry that we want to meet with the deportees, and we have reliable information that some of these deportees, we cannot disclose their names. We have some of their names. It's confidentiality and client privilege. That some of these guys are part of what I refer to that withholding of removal. And so if they are on that we want to confirm that with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that we have a responsibility to protect these people.
And you also fear that this risks to expose our citizens to a lot of other challenges and hostilities if they are allowed into our nation.
Well, I will not suggest that if they are allowed in Syria, because they are ECOWAS citizens, And if they cannot go to their own country, we should not allow them. We should not let them stateless, because ECOWAS citizens have the right to move freely within the ECOWAS countries and do their business and live whatsoever they want to do.
Okay,
thank you very much. He's Alphonsus Bani, and of course he is the Executive Secretary for Human Rights Defenders Network Sierra Leone.
David, you have been silent for a while. So, when you were making your submission, you made mention that you have still 10 elections that were not conducted.
Across Leone, more people are asking the same question. Why buy fuel anywhere else when Cornex gives you more? Professionally trained attendants who know service matters. Honest fuel. A litre is a litre, every single time. And when it's time to pay, easy. Pay with mobile money, Visa or MasterCard, or the Cornex fuel card. Clean restrooms, welcoming spaces. Every station, every time. Clean fuel, clean spaces, clear value. That's why Sierra Leone fuels with Cornex. Cornex retail outlets. Always clean, always professional, always for you. Fuel smart, live smart. Get your Cornex fuel card today. I run a small logistics company. Every cent counts. I didn't think I needed a fuel card until I got the Cornex fuel card. Now, I track exactly how much fuel my fleet uses, in real time. And when my wife or kids need fuel, no cash, no stress. It's safe, accepted nationwide, and I control how much goes on each card. At the end of the month, I see the savings, real savings. Cornex fuel card. I didn't know I needed it. Now, I can't run my business or family without it. Fuel smart, live smart. Visit any Cornex filling station to sign off, or any Cornex office to get your card.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation